What a week, Saints fans. We have a first American Pope. We've got the celebration of Cam Jordan Day. We've got rookie minicamp. And bam, hit Saturday morning as I'm cooking up breakfast for the family. Derek Carr has retired. Welcome into a special edition of Inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller with Jeff Nowak. We got just done with going to Saints rookie minicamp, but we ain't talking about that today. How you doing, Jeff?
That was quite a list you just reeled off.
It was quite a week.
I did not expect the Pope to be included in this conversation. The Pope, who I don't know, is he a Bears fan? They faced the Bears? The last Pope was inadvertently a Saints fan, and now we have a Bears fan. I don't know, but yeah, this is a special edition episode. We don't usually record episodes on Saturdays. We were not intending until about 2 hours ago to come in and do this. We kind of talked ourselves into it as we were sitting out at Saints camp. Like, we got to record an episode. We can't wait until Monday. But we are not going to talk about Saints rookie minicamp. We will talk about Saints rookie minicamp. That's not this episode. This is the Derek Carr episode. And so we're going to go through in this first segment. We're going to talk it out. We're going to kind of go through our immediate reactions. You know, it's still so fresh. I mean, it's a few hours old, but it's still fresh. So we're going to go through a lot of it. Second segment, we're going to hit a mailbag. We're only going to do 2 segments. So if you have comments, questions, I'm sure there are a lot of them. Throw them in there. We'll get through as many as we can. But yeah, Derek Carr retired. You know, it's crazy to me that, I mean, what would you say? Hundreds of thousands of hours of people talking about this. Even us, we've spent hours and hours and hours talking about this, going through scenarios. I've heard people spend hours and hours and hours talking about it, going through scenarios. Not one time. And if I'm wrong, point me in the direction so I can give them all of the props in the world. Not one time did I hear the scenario floated of what actually happened today. Of Derek Carr just says, I'm going to retire. The Saints are like, we'll give you $10 million to just get out of here. And he's like, sold. Here's my $30 million back. Do what you want to do. And as mysteriously as he arrived, he was gone. Right? Like, that's what happened today. And, you know, I didn't expect Derek Carr to play, and we'll get into what Kellen Moore had to say in a few minutes here, but, like, I didn't think he would just be like, here's my money, bye.
Yeah, this is definitely not a bash Derek Carr day either, because he honestly did this team a huge solid.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think no one went down this path of, like, saying, oh, this might happen is because it was like, every indication we've had is like, no, he doesn't want to give money back. You know, like, they asked him to take a pay cut. He wouldn't do that. And now suddenly it's like, all right, you know, and I think this did end up being the best case scenario. And we'll kind of go through it, right? Derek Carr is retiring. He had a labrum tear in his shoulder. Now, again, one of the only things I've said in defense of Derek Carr throughout this entire process is, like, I think the injury is legitimate.
Right. You're never buying into the faking it aspect.
Like, I don't know why everyone immediately dove down he's faking an injury, as if a 34-year-old quarterback who's played in the NFL for 11 years might have a problem with his shoulder. And that's what it is. He had a labrum tear, which he believes happened in that game against the Giants. He didn't really ramp up throwing until the offseason. And like, saying, how is that possible? Well, I don't know. Go outside and do some soft toss with a relative and feel the impact that has on your shoulder. And then turn around to somebody else and throw the fastest ball you can and tell me whether you think one impacts your shoulder more than the other. Like, and that's kind of the story we have, is he started to ramp up throwing in March, and he noticed there was an issue with his shoulder that he did not notice throughout the process. Believe what you want. That's what we're being told. There was a degenerative issue in his shoulder that was uncovered by doctors. The tear was confirmed by the MRI, and the options are surgery or basically nothing else. Like, he was not playing with it at the level that it was, and I don't think he was interested in having surgery, at least not in this setting, in order to play. And so instead, he is retiring. The Saints are not trying to get back the $10 million roster bonus that he got this offseason when they extended it, when they restructured his deal. And he is not trying to get the $30 million that the Saints were owed to him in terms of that contract restructure. You're effectively wiping that off the books. So all said and done, the Saints, the way I keep describing it, people, is the Saints had a check that they had already put out for $80 million. That was signed, sealed, delivered. They weren't getting that back. And then they got a rebate for $30 million on that. So effectively, Derek Carr is out the door for $50 million that you're still going to pay. But at the same time, it's also not like, oh, well, you're paying him. That's effectively $50 million or $40 million for the games he already played, plus $10 million as like the opposite of a signing bonus. So when you say like he's doing the team a solid, he actually is, because he could have gone ahead surgery and then just sat on IR for the entire season and made all of that money. So all this is to say, like, I don't know. People you're going to be mad at Derek Carr because you don't like Derek Carr, and I get that. But this is the best case scenario.
It's wild. We talked about it a lot at minicamp today, seeing all the rookies. And yeah, that was the big stunner for me. It's like you could have gone on the physically unable to perform list, on injured reserve, whatever it was, and just collecting that check. It's not the case here. So it's huge for the Saints team. And yeah, like you said, there's really no complaining to do right now. Who Dat should be celebrating, and I know a lot of fans are happy. I've seen the memes getting put out there with the black and gold smoke coming from the Superdome. I guess that's why I mentioned the Pope too. You had that reference with Derek Carr's news, but in the end, I was definitely, I would say, hurt by the fact that he was putting out that YouTube review video that bothered me a lot. And seeing how he has taken this situation, and he's still getting a great chunk of change from the Saints right now. But the fact that he could have gotten a lot more, and it would have been his total right, because they restructured that contract with him and could have went on, like I said, PUP or the IR list. That's not the case here. Big win for the Saints organization today overall.
Show me where the Carr review hurt you, Steve. And I'm just kidding. Right, just kidding. In my heart. In my heart. No, I mean, that's where you are. Like, there was a lot of debate over whether Derek was on the same page with the team. And what this deal, because it's a deal. Like, this is not, oh, I'm just going to retire. This is a communicated, understood, this is the best path forward, which means that they have been kind of in lockstep in how this was going to play out to some extent. It was weird when Mickey Loomis came out and was basically like, I'm not saying anything about the Derek Carr situation. It was weird because it was like, why? Why aren't you saying anything? And now that you see it play out, you understand, like, I think that this was what they were hoping would happen. They were not hoping that he was going to be healthy and playing week 1. They weren't hoping that he was going to have surgery and go away. They were hoping that this would happen. And if you're Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore, basically it's in Derek's court. Derek gets to decide whether he wants to retire or not. And all the Saints could do was stay out of the way. And one way they could get in the way is going out prior to the draft and saying something that could be construed as something negative and throwing shade on the quarterback. And like, I think that's all they wanted to avoid, was a media storm that might impact his decision-making to the point that he was like, no, they're not on my side. They are not working with me. I'm going to take my money. And he didn't. Which means that there's some level of accommodation being sent from the Saints, like in terms of, okay, this is what I want, this is what you want. Let's find a middle ground, and that's what they did. And the way I described it in a few conversations today is like, it just feels like, and I'm not as negative on Derek Carr as most people. I think with distance, you'll see it's like he wasn't that bad. He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. He went 14-13. It was a definition of middle ground, right? It's the same thing you see with the Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton. Like, that's the tier of quarterback that Derek Carr is. He's 20th, 21st, I think, all time, maybe 22nd all time in passing yards. He's one of like 24 quarterbacks in NFL history to have over 40,000 passing yards. I mean, that's not a terrible career. So I just think from that perspective, okay, we don't need to continually, he's gone. He can't hurt you anymore. Let's just move on from that conversation. That said, like, it does feel like you were kind of walking forward with an anchor attached to you. And what today is, and why it feels so relieving, is you basically took a bolt cutter and hacked that anchor off. Now you're still at the bottom of the lake, of the ocean, of whatever body of water fits this analogy for you. You're still sitting there at the bottom. You still got to find a way to the top. You still got to swim up and to take some breaths.
Gulf of America, baby.
The Gulf of America. But without the anchor, you can do that. With the anchor, it felt impossible. Without the anchor, it feels like you can at least get to the point where you're above water. And that's why it feels like Tyler Shuck might not be anything. He might be terrible. Spencer Rattler might get in there and stink it up. It doesn't matter because it's at least the path that you're on. And if that path works out, great. If it doesn't, and you have to take another left turn, whatever, you can at least do that. And so that's why I think, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about where the Saints team could be going. But it now feels like they're at least getting there with the hurdle has dropped dramatically in height.
You're talking about Carr's career and definitely gets a lot more criticism than deserved for the QB he is when available. 2 years with the Saints, Jeff, completed 68% of his passes, 27 total games, and 40 touchdowns versus 13 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, the final 5 games of, it's funny. He had a 7-game stretch from week 13 of last season to week 2 of this or 2 seasons ago to week 2 of this season, right? Where he completed, he had an insane run of quarterback play, right? And it ended in week 3 against the Eagles. But there was some really good games in there. It doesn't matter. It was a disappointment. It did not work. It was a bad bet. And, we talked yesterday on Sports Talk about sunk cost fallacy. One of the reasons it felt like the Saints weren't moving on is because they had money invested. Well, a sunk cost fallacy doesn't actually pan out if you get your money back. And they did. So we'll see how that goes. Either way, this is what Kellen Moore, he was asked about the news and just in general, this is what he had to say today.
As we've gone through this whole offseason, Derek's had to go through a lot just as you go through this process. And, obviously making the decision ultimately to retire from the National Football League after 11-year career. I mean, first of all, you respect and appreciate so much that Derek's done in this league and for the way he's done it, the on-the-field performance, the off-the-field person that he's showcased, and the impact he's had on so many people in this profession is really, really special. And so certainly, coming here, I've always had so much respect and appreciation for him. And as we've gone through this process, obviously this is how it kind of ultimately was settled. It was really good communication through the whole process as far as navigating this. Again, challenging circumstances with him being injured at the end of the year, and then just kind of navigating things throughout the whole offseason process. And so, I think, Derek, the people that are a part of his life have communicated really well with the Saints. I think there's been really good communication, and so, we feel like it was done the right way.
This is Kellen talking about when the decision was made.
He's kind of communicated mostly with Mickey and those guys as we've gone through this process. And, obviously the last few days, they had those communications and those conversations and made this ultimate decision that felt best for them.
And here's one more clip.
Certainly, as you go through this process, every player goes through a lot of challenges during the offseason program. A lot of guys, play NFL seasons and they're hard and they're grinding, and guys go through those recovery processes. We've got a lot of guys who are going through injury recoveries as we go through this, and so Derek's just like those guys. Obviously, the clarity will provide some of those younger quarterbacks a chance to just get ready from a rep standpoint and opportunity standpoint, and obviously those guys will be ready and fired up for that. Again, I feel like it's gone the right way, and it's been a good process.
Yeah, the process is a word Kellen Moore uses a lot. But one thing, Kellen Moore said today that he never met Derek Carr in person. Now, whether they met at some point throughout the course of their respective playing careers, I don't know. But in a capacity as a Saints head coach, Kellen Moore never was in the same room as Derek Carr. We talked to Tyler Shuck in the locker room. We're going to have a lot to say about rookie minicamp. We did talk to Tyler Shuck. We talked to Kelvin Banks. We got a lot. I plan to address that in our Monday episode. But, Tyler Shuck never talked to Derek Carr. Kelvin Banks, when he was asked today, was like, I didn't even know until just now that Derek Carr had retired. So it was never a realistic scenario for him to be the week 1 starter. And I understand why the Saints and Derek Carr teased it out and played it out the way they did. But this was always going to be a divorce. It was always going to be a divorce, whether it was with the surgery, whether it was with a trade, whether it was whatever. It was just a question of how you split up the assets. And they came to an amicable solution. But the more you hear and the more you kind of learn, like this was never a situation where I don't think the Saints believed he was going to be their quarterback. I don't think Derek Carr believed he was going to be the Saints quarterback. And the injury really just kind of provided a kind of emergency exit from a scenario that became unlivable, right? Whether it was, you want to say it was a life, I'm all about the analogies today. You could say it was a life preserver thrown from the boat. You could say it was a fire escape out the window, whatever you want to say. Everyone got out alive. And that's a good thing, you know? But like for Kellen, whether he will say it or not, and he won't say it.
Right.
But like, this has to be a relief of like, I can just go forward. You know, we might be bad, but I can at least go forward with the quarterback plan that I decide on. So we'll see what that is.
We've mentioned it a ton. Just Derek Carr never, for whatever reason, got in the good graces with Who Dats. I don't know if it because it started out him being a Dennis Allen guy and a Raiders transplant over here. His play wasn't awful, which we've talked about, but the fact that going into this season, we figured that it was going to be almost impossible to take the field in the Superdome, and you knew what was going to happen as soon as, you know, either Derek Carr's name's announced or he runs out onto the field. Those boos would rain down, and that's not something you want to have in Coach Kellen Moore's first season here in New Orleans. And I totally agree with you. He's not going to, Moore won't talk about it in this aspect, but it is a huge weight lifted off of him right now.
Yeah. And I mean, the Saints were never going to make a decision because the fans were like, I don't like this guy. But at the same time,
they hear it.
I think they're insulated from a lot of it, but the noise got to the point, like people know what I do for work. I could not go to dinner without having someone be like, is Derek Carr the quarterback? You know, like there's a point where it's just like, I thought in year one, it was just a level of toxicity of like, guys, come on, give the guy a chance. And it never happened. But like by now it's just like, okay, fine. I get it. Like, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of it, but it's there.
Right.
It's tangible. Like you can't deny that it's there, that no one felt like Derek Carr was the quarterback of the Saints, or at least not one that, you know, they could have.
As much as you or I can say, guys, he's not that bad of a quarterback. The fans didn't want to hear it. They don't care.
You use the word transplant. I think that's a fitting word because he was rejected like a bad organ transplant. It's like, it seemed to make sense. Everything about it made sense. It was the right blood type. It was everything. And then, oh, no. This is terrible. And you know, we'll go from there. But I just appreciate, like, hopefully this is one of the last times we spend an episode. Our entire offseason, if you go through our catalog of podcast episodes, it's just been Derek Carr. Like, I'm tired of it. And I'm just so relieved that I don't have to, like, I expect Derek Carr to play again. I don't think he's done in the NFL. I think this is kind of like a wink, wink, nod, nod. Well, yeah, whatever happens. And the Saints will still have his rights. But like, if Derek Carr comes back in 2 years and it's like, I want to sign with this team, I think the Saints would be like,
go ahead.
I don't care. Move on. And I fully endorse that. Like, it needed to end, and it's ending.
Yeah, nothing but good vibes right now. And I know I feel for Derek on a personal level. We know he went through some family issues, as well as dealing with the injury. Definitely wish him the best. But for us, Jeff, you mentioned it. It's been nonstop. Derek Carr's shoulder. Is he going to play? If he does come back, will he be the starter? You fully expect him because he's making all this money. And that burden not being on us even anymore, having to cover this, is such a great lift And I'm so much more looking forward to this season, focused on the QB competition of Shuck, Rattler, and Hayner.
Yeah, now we can just deal with the toxic quarterback people about the quarterbacks that are, interested to talk about. Because there will be plenty of that. There's plenty of bandwidth to get the obnoxious arguments back going around the young quarterbacks. Just get rid of that old guy. I still think they're going to bring in a veteran guy because I want a veteran in that room to kind of lead. Whether not like even a guy that you expect to win the starting job. It's going to be a competition. I asked Kellen about that today. He was like, "Yeah, it's you're going to get to the preseason. These guys are going to compete. They're all going to be on kind of the same page, and we'll see how that goes." But just to pin the, I don't want to end here and go to the mailbag, but just to kind of put a pin in the financial part of it. So basically, we are looking at this year. Most likely, this is not going to be finalized until June 1st because that allows you to spread some of the cap hit even further. I think what you're looking at is around in the range of $13.5 million against the cap this year. So he was originally going to count $20 million against the cap. So whatever his new cap number becomes, subtract that from $20 million, and whatever the dividend is, that is the extra cap space the Saints have generated through this move. So it should be around $6 million on top of, I think they had like $27 million in cap space. So you're going to be looking at around 30-something million dollars in operating room this year. Now, they just signed draft picks. They have other draft picks to sign. So it's kind of a moving target. But that's that. Next year, instead of a $59 million dead cap hit, you'll be looking at something in the range of $32-33 million, which is about what you were paying, which is about what your dead cap hit was for Marshawn Lattimore this year. And also, keep in mind, you're going to be having a starting quarterback, whether it's Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, or player to be named later, draft pick to be named later. You're going to be starting a quarterback on a rookie contract. So you can stomach that because it'd basically be like your starting quarterback making like $40 million, which would even now be like a middle of the road quarterback contract. So this allows you to basically be free and clear from the Derek Carr money by 2027, and it limits the impact it's going to have on you in 2026.
Yeah, I think Saints fans, when they digest more of this, will kind of be celebrating this outcome now. I mean, there's nothing but positives going forward, and I'm sorry that the last 2 years weren't what you expected.
Yeah, it's going to be funny because I expect this season to go badly. I think they might win 4 games if things go a certain way. But at the same time, I think there will be optimism surrounding that has not been there. That definitely wasn't there last year. And it's like if you look good and lose a bunch of games because you don't have the, like you have guys learning how to win in real time because you're playing a lot of rookies and you're developing players. I hope people can get behind that because this is what you've been asking for. You've been asking for a reset. You've been asking to kind of reset the trajectory of this team. And that's what you've been trying to do this season when you make 9 draft picks. That's what going with a young quarterback is going to do for you. And sometimes that's losing a lot of games. But that's all I have on that subject. Do you have anything else before we move on?
No, I just think this is definitely something that kind of we're past the Dennis Allen era with the Saints, and tied into that was Derek Carr, who's now removed. So you kind of slicing that all out of this, and definitely really is a fresh start going into this season.
It is true. You kind of took a scalpel and you removed like the last, there's some Dennis Allen pieces left, but not many. Like it's basically gone. I think you're right. Like Derek was kind of the last vestige of the Dennis Allen era, at least in the sense that like you can't spin it into the Kellen More era and feel like it's fresh. Like Bub Means, I don't care. Like he's a guy that can fit, and if he doesn't, you move on.
Alontae Taylor, obviously Dennis Allen selected him, but I think a guy that's been a locker room leader, someone that you're still seeing develop on the field, but he doesn't carry that animosity towards him the way Carr ever did, obviously.
Right. That's exactly what it is. It's like there are players lingering from the Dennis Allen era, but like not that you can't fully kind of assimilate into the Kellen More era and feel like that's where they were all along. All right. This is Inside Black and Gold. Let's wrap this up. We're going to come back, do a mailbag. Again, we're not talking about rookie minicamp, even though that's what we did all day was go to rookie minicamp. We're talking about Derek Carr. If you have questions about rookie minicamp, throw them in the mailbag. We'll try to we can get to some of them. But by and large, we're going to get to those in our Monday episode. And then we have the schedule release later in the week. So there's going to be a lot of content coming at you. But we're going to come back, do a quick mailbag, and then get the hell out of here and work the rest of the day because there's plenty of work left to do. But this is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. We'll be right back. And we are back on this special edition of Inside Black and Gold, a Saturday edition. We don't have a lot of.
And shout out to all our fans out there logging in right now, especially in an impromptu, last minute, live podcast we're putting out. We got a bunch of people on here chiming in.
Yeah, we've got well over 100. We've been pushing 200 for a couple minutes there until we went to a break. But I always appreciate everyone tuning in. We don't give anyone any warning. We just say go, which is not a good thing. It's not a good way to organize a podcast, but it's how we do it. So I appreciate that people bear with us. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. We've been talking about Derek Carr. We're going to continue talking about Derek Carr because I just went through the comments and there are not a lot of rookie minicamp questions. We're going to have a lot to say about rookie minicamp, but today is all about Derek Carr, and we're going to get into the live mailbag. This is not going to be a 40-minute mailbag because there's a Celtics game going on. I'd like to see whether they lose the series because if you go down 3-0, you're going to lose the series. But I'm hanging out with you because that's how important you are to me.
Well, the good thing for you, Boston's rocking New York right now.
As I told you yesterday, like Knicks fans are so excited. They're going to lose by 30 because this team they just poked a bear. And they poked a bear. Anyway, speaking of a bear, Derek Carr never played for the Bears. Maybe he will someday. I don't know. But we got Swag fan. He says, "Damn, it feels good to be a Saints fan." I think they're going for the song there. I feel like a Saintster, maybe feels good to be a Saintster.
I think that should be the majority feeling from folks, and just be happy it's over. The saga, the soap opera, whatever you want to say, it's over.
Yeah, I'm just glad we can talk about something else after this episode.
Yeah.
Stefan says, one thing is clear, Carr had no ill intent and wasn't hardballing or lying in any way. I mean, I do think there was some level of prevarication going on. But, I mean, if Derek wanted to stick it to this team,
right,
he had a very easy way to do so. And the Saints would have just had to eat it,
take it,
figure it out. And instead, he did this in a way that, he gets to keep a $10 million bonus check, which ain't nothing. And the Saints get a lot of flex. $30 million that you were not expecting to have, or at least that you weren't guaranteed to have. It's a lot. I mean, that changes things. It changes some things this year. You have some flexibility. If, signing a Keenan Allen, for example, might have been a problem. You just got $7 million in extra space to work with. If you don't choose to use that, you can roll that over. And then next year, based on how this year goes, like if Tyler Shuck goes out and balls out, if Spencer Rattler goes out and balls out, and suddenly, like the Commanders this offseason, and I'm not saying it's going to be Jaden Daniels, but like you look at how the Commanders operated this offseason, now that they know they have a quarterback to build around, And it's like, man, they're making all the moves. If you're the Saints, it's not about, okay, we got money burning a hole in my pocket, I'm going to go spend it. When you feel like that title window is open again, you want to be in a position where you can hit it. And this makes it a lot easier to do that if and when you get to that point where you feel like we're a contender again.
Yeah, it's interesting now that I know a lot of folks they feel like there's money in the Saints' pocket that they're just dying to burn and sign some free agents. There really isn't much out there to add.
No, it's very much like you have the money, like, I got, like, this is me. Like every time I get like an extra, I paid, like every time I get paid, I'm like, I got all this money, I got to go buy something.
Right.
But do I though? Do I have to go buy, a new Xbox because I have the money? The old one works just fine. Anyway, I have friends who do that. It's like, oh, I have $500 in my bank account. I have to go buy the new Switch. Do you though? I think the Saints should embrace the philosophy of rolling over cap space, because there's still $12 million over the cap for next year, or something in the range of that. Like, they're still going to be over the cap next year. But, if it's $20 million, that's a way different scenario than what they put themselves in. Stefan says today is the white smoke from the dome. Ricardo Estrada says Derek Carr's record with the Raiders 63-79, others 0-4, Saints 14-13, others 0-7. That's true. Like,
okay,
on a winning record with the Saints. You know how many quarterbacks have a winning record for the Saints? Like, there's like 5 of them. There's not that many. and Taysom Hill is on that list. It's
we've mentioned it. Nobody wants to hear it. Without Derek last year, we saw what this team was.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's anyway, we don't need to get too much into that.
Right.
Like, this is not going to be a period of time that we look on with any type of fondness, but it also wasn't nearly as bad as people are going to make it out to be. No, you almost wish it was worse. Seriously. Because, like, if it was worse, you would have had better draft picks. Like the Giants have picked in the top 10 of the draft, like, every other year for the past 2 decades. The Saints have only done it once, and it was the number 9 pick. For a team that everyone talks about all the time is terrible, how come they're never picking in the top 5?
That's why I scoff at those power rankings post-draft that come out and have the Saints, bottom 3 in the league. I'm like, come on.
I mean, I understand why, but we'll see how it goes. Julius Rickles says Keenan Allen, Jalen Ramsey, and an edge. I don't know
about an edge.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints have so many edge players at this point. Like, I mean, I don't think you need to just add another one to add another one.
Nah.
You need the players who are in the room to, we talked to Fadil Diggs for the first time today. Like, I'm interested to see what he has to do, what he has to offer. And then also, like, it's a whole new defense. I'd like to see how some of these guys work in that defense.
What's money is you mentioned Diggs, and he chimed in, obviously getting to work with Cam Jordan. He's thrilled to be around him. Somebody he's been watching, he said, since he was 10 years old. I was like, oh my Lord.
I mean, heck, I've been watching Cam Jordan since, I'm the same age as Cam Jordan. So I've been watching him since he was 19 and I was 19 at the same time. But no, I mean, I don't think you're going after the edge. I don't think you're going after a cornerback. I think you're just going to ride it out and see what happens. Quincy Riley, he's dealing with an injury, which is interesting. He had a procedure to clean up some kind of issue. So he was there, but not working out. I do think you're going to want to go get a wide receiver of some kind. Now, if it's Keenan Allen, if it's somebody else, if you want to kind of go for the top of the market or the bottom of the market, Donovan Peoples-Jones was a tryout player. We'll see if maybe he works into that equation. I still think, you want to bring in a veteran QB, and not even to play necessarily, just to be a veteran presence in that room. Like, I don't think, I don't mind the idea of going with young quarterbacks. I don't love the idea of having only young quarterbacks.
Do you think there's a situation, maybe because they have so many former QBs in the coaching staff, that could be that veteran presence?
Yeah, you read my mind. Like, that's like, if you're not bringing in a veteran, that's probably the reason, is because you feel like between Scott Tolzien, Doug Nussmeier, Kellen Moore, you have enough veteran QB presence in terms of coaches that you don't necessarily
that.
need the role model player. I still think, and Kellen kind of said this today, is like sometimes, having 4 quarterbacks in camp is not unusual. Like it's what they had 4 quarterbacks until Derek Carr retired. So like, I don't think that there's going to be an issue per se with using one of those 90-man roster spots on a veteran. Just, in some cases, just to show these young players how an NFL quarterback has to work, right? What does it look like to be a pro quarterback? And, yes, Spencer Rattler saw it to some extent last year with Derek. Jake Hayner saw it to some extent for the last 2 years with all the quarterbacks in the room. And, we'll see. But I think you should be looking for a wide receiver of some bulk, of some size, and a veteran quarterback. Tata Acaboquento says, make a trade for Kenny Pickett from the Cleveland Browns. Kenny Pickett played last year for Kellen Moore with the Philadelphia Eagles. One of those Browns quarterbacks might be available. Maybe you can go get Joe Flacco.
I like Tata's thinking there just because he does have the experience with Kellen, Super Bowl champ as well. And yeah, I don't know what's going to go on with that Browns QB room. I feel like they'll probably keep Flacco with Shador and the kid from Oregon, but Pickett might be the odd man out though. They did trade for him though. I don't know if they're that committed to keeping him though.
I kind of feel like for Flacco to come back, he has to feel like he's going to play.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did sign to be the backup, but I don't know. As long as Kenny Pickett is not your plan to start, I'm okay with it. Like, I don't want Kenny Pickett as the starter. I wouldn't mind him in the room, but I don't want him as a starter. Tanner McKee's another guy that people are going to talk about, but I don't think that solves the problem of a guy like to help lead young players. Hakeem Batiste says, I'm okay with a bad next year. It's the start of change, which I'm more interested in. Yeah, you kind of, it's a scenario where you root for the best, but understand that the worst is not the worst thing that could happen. Right? Like, you're kind of bulletproof in that way. Of like, it would be fantastic if you buck expectations, win 10 games, take the NFC South. It's the odds are against you, but it's not impossible. This is not a division with a team that's going to win 13, 14 games in it. And if you do, that's fantastic. It's so exciting. It's kind of the revival season that the Saints need. It's what they had in 2006 with Drew Brees, and they went to the NFC Championship in a year where they weren't ready. 2006 was not a team that should have been in the NFC Championship. They punched above their weight and got there, and you felt really good about the quarterback to the point that next year you went 7-9. All right, fine. Okay, we've seen what it can be. You're dialing it in. They won the Super Bowl 2 years later. But if you don't, and you do lose a bunch of games, and you're in a scenario where you haven't traded away future picks, which they haven't, you can move on from some of your veteran assets mid-season and maybe bring in some more picks, and then you can continue the rebuild next year. So I agree. Like, it's not the end of the world if you lose a lot of games, because you've set up a scenario where you at least benefit from it.
You think the win total in Vegas changes now that Carr's retired? He's definitely gone.
It would be funny if it went up.
I don't think
that'll
it will. Happen.
I think it'll actually probably go down.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like that's a funny scenario in the sense that like, it goes down, but people are happier about it. So yeah. Bordelais says tank for Arch. He was joking. I don't know.
I was going to say, you better be saying tank for Nuss. Get on the Nuss bus.
I don't know why I gendered Bordelais, but Bordelais says tank for Arch. It was a joke. But at the same time, like, yeah, I think the Nuss bus is a more likely scenario than the Arch March for Arch.
The March for Arch.
Yeah. Because I don't think, the more you kind of think about it, I don't think Arch is coming out. We heard
that's
from
what's
Manning.
funny with everyone saying, tank for Arch. I'm like, I don't think he's going to be in the draft next year, folks.
It would be kind of wild to see the guy who's definitely going to go number 1 overall. Like, and I'm not saying he is definitely going to go over number 1 overall, but if you get to the end of the season and he is the consensus number 1 pick, seemed like everyone knew Cam Ward was going to go number 1, and he stays in college, that would be kind of wild. But that's what the Mannings do. The Mannings none of the Mannings came out early. And they were number 1.
Din LA just put up Arch March 2027.
Yeah. Walter Nolan says, if anyone remembers, are you the Walter Nolan? I don't think you are. He says, if anyone remembers Carson Wentz's first year with the Colts, that's what I imagine we're going to get from Shuck, which would be perfect. Was Carson Wentz good when he was with the Colts?
I'd have to.
I think
I
this
don't
is
believe
saying
he
like
was.
they're going to tank. Elvis, the Bully King, says, it's Tyler time. Chris says, where's Jameis? He's in New York, hanging out with Russ and Jackson.
And he seems to be a social media video star. He loves making him some videos.
Sure is. Tanya Stefanakis says, do we try to get Aaron Rodgers for experience? No.
No.
Not because getting Aaron Rodgers would make you a worse team. Because if it's the goal is to add a veteran who will help guide young players, Aaron's not the guy I want doing that. He's not a role model. He's a great, all-time great football player. He's not a guy I want people to emulate as a person.
Jeff, real quick, 2021, Wentz's only year in Indy, played 17 games, 62% of his passes completed, 3,500 yards, 27 TDs, 7 picks.
Yeah, so sure. I do think the comparison is interesting from Shuck to Wentz. They do have physical traits that are similar. We're going to talk a lot more about Tyler Shuck on Monday, but
yeah,
Jerry G says, we've had enough with Carr. Don't want more drama with Rodgers. I agree. Like,
preach, Jerry.
I could not agree more with this. Like, I just do not, it's just not going to benefit you enough to embrace that level of noise. And like, that's why I don't know if he's going to have a job, even if we'll see. He's probably going to go to the Steelers. But yeah. Let's see. There's a lot more comments that have come in since we started this segment. But let's it wasn't a dumb question. I appreciate the question. I think it's a good question. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and before even the draft, the Cajun Cannon was all aboard signing Rodgers.
Yeah, again, and like if you're trying to win, yeah, go for it. It's just if the point of signing a veteran is to be a kind of helpful presence for young quarterbacks to develop, I don't see Aaron as that guy. Eugene Sutherland says, I am actively rooting for the worst. We are definitely set up for it. 8 or 9 wins helps no one. Granted, I'm not the believer in Shuck, Sanders, or any other available QB was the answer. Oh, no. He's saying, I'm not the biggest believer in Shuck, Sanders, or any other available QB. I don't know. I think he's saying that none of the quarterbacks in this draft were
going to make any difference. Right.
Which you may be right. I mean, like Cam Ward, despite the social media posts of like, he's him, he threw a spiral in practice.
The Titans are set with their franchise quarterback for years.
I don't even think he's a sure thing, and there was like no such thing as a sure thing at quarterback. The hit rate in the first round is 50%. The hit rate in the third round or second round is even worse. So we'll see. But no, I will
say I was pretty damn confident about Burrow just because we saw so much of him at LSU. He seemed like the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, some players come out and you have a really high level of confidence in them, but there's people who didn't believe in Joe Burrow. So Chasen Fitteds says Archie on WWL Radio said Arch is not coming out next year, and he criticized heavily the people who claim Arch is coming out next year. He didn't. This is a good example of like he didn't really say that. He said that no one knows whether Arch is going to come out next year. Archie doesn't get to decide whether Arch is going to come out next year. I don't think Arch has told anyone his intentions in that respect. But no, I mean, I think what Archie was kind of talking about was like the people who go out and say things as if they know, like they don't know. I don't think anyone knows, but there's going to be advice given. And I think if it's Archie would be of the belief that staying in college would benefit his grandson. Now, does Cooper feel that way? I don't know. Does Cooper feel that way? I don't know. Bordelise says, March for Arch, start printing the t-shirts now. Who Dat Marvin says, what about signing a tight end? Are there any out there on the market? I don't think you're signing a tight end. I think, one thing that I noticed yesterday, the Saints don't have a fullback on the roster.
I saw you put that out there, right?
So I think Jack Stoll is basically going to be their fullback. because I think he's just kind of that H-back. I think Kellen probably prefers an H-back, although the Eagles did have a fullback last year. So it's kind of interesting. But that would be a change. The Saints are one of the few, like not every NFL team carries a fullback. The Saints have been one. And now it doesn't appear they will be. 992
to your
RAS.
point about tight end, I fully, with the contract they gave Juwan Johnson, this team, even Kellen Moore now on board, they believe in what Juwan can provide them.
I agree. I mean, you didn't sign Juwan to that contract unless you had plans to feature him to some capacity. 992 RIS is having cheap QBs will help with the cap. Absolutely. Having a quarterback on a rookie contract is a cheat code in the NFL. Like you saw what the Seahawks were able to do when Russ was on a rookie contract compared to what they were able to do when he was not on a rookie contract. And it changed dramatically. Like you look at the 49ers, having Brock Purdy on that rookie contract has been, you were able to build an insane team around him. Now he's going to get paid what? 60 mil? That changed that scenario. So yeah, I agree with you. Let's see. Let's get one more and then get on out of here. Got a dog barking, wants to come in, but I'm saying wait. Okay.
Bailey waits for no one.
That is true. That is true. I had one and I lost it.
Thank you, Aaron Morton Jr., for just putting out there too. Archie isn't a proven QB yet. Relax. You're all in love with his name. He isn't proven yet. So damn true. You see even Heisman Trophy favorite. I'm like, everyone just relax.
The name has a lot to do with it.
Right.
But it would be just such a nice result. But yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, like we're putting the cart very far ahead of the horse here.
Before.
Let's see. Hakeem Batiste says, why don't we trade for tight end Michael Mayer from the Raiders since Brock Bowers is the man-child there now? I mean, I just don't think that you're in the market for a tight end.
Right.
Like, if you were, you would have drafted a tight end. You were there. Like, there were tight ends to draft. You chose not to. So I don't know. Like, I think they're rolling with Juwan. We'll see from a blocking tight end perspective. I like Malik Yamadava. I don't know if he'll be ready in his rookie season to impact things. But Foster Moreau was still here. He's been rehabbing. It seems like it's going well. I chatted with him at the facility not too long ago. He was moving fine. I didn't see any issues. He was out working with the quarterbacks Tyler Shuck and Rattler, I believe, at Tulane. He was wearing a knee brace, so it's still something he's working back from. But he's gonna be in there. You still have Dallin Halker. You still have some of these other guys. So I don't anticipate that you're in the tight end market. I don't.
And fingers crossed. Hopefully, we see Taysom back.
I keep forgetting about Taysom. Yeah. I don't even know if I'd consider him a tight end, but yeah, I kind of feel like they want. Here's the thing, and this isn't a question, and I'll end on this. I think the Saints would love for Taysom Hill to do the exact thing that Derek Carr just did. I think they would love
to say, I'm done. I can't play anymore.
Yes. I think that's what they want. I think and it's not because he's not a good player. It's not because he's a bad locker room guy. It's just because the commitment to having him in your offense is significant. And if you're building so much around a guy that can't stay healthy and has been proven that he just can't stay healthy, then I just don't know if it's worth the commitment. But you're financially tied to him. No team is going to trade for him. Maybe the Broncos, but if they say no, like I don't know any other team in the NFL that would be like, yeah, give us that contract. We'll work it in. So and I'm not saying he can't have success in Kellen Moore's offense. I just think you see like why Derek Carr just retiring and clearing the deck for the new guard was beneficial. And that's it's obviously a different situation because people love Taysom Hill. But I genuinely believe if the Saints had it their way, Taysom will be sending out an Instagram post saying, "Thank you, everyone. I'm moving on to the next phase of my career." Will he do that? I don't know. All I know is I believe the Saints would love for that to happen.
Yeah, that's tough because the warrior, or whatever you want to call him, that Taysom is. And I feel like he's got to prove it even to himself that he can make it back. And definitely curious to see what Kellen Moore could cook up with Taysom Hill. I hear you, though, about, the age, the injury, and it would be kind of another relief to find out that he's just moving on.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens there. I think it's telling that when Mickey was asked about it, he was just like, "Yeah, he's injured. He's got a long way back." It wasn't like, "We'll see." It was jarring in the same interview where he would not give you even a hint of a detail of like I asked him straight up, "Which shoulder is hurt?" He said, "I will not tell you that." I was like, "What do you mean you won't tell me that?"
Yeah.
and so much so that he did a hand gesture, and he was just like in the shoulder, and he went like this. And I was like, "You're really committed to this, man." Because I was like, "Oh, if he reaches for one, then
Right.
that'll be telling." But he didn't. He went. And I was like, "Man, he is in it." But later on the same press conference, or I said later on that day, I should say, he was like, "Yeah, Taysom's hurt. He's not going to be back for a while." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, I don't know. That's another conversation for another day. It's something like I don't expect him to be there for OTAs. Training camp is a different story. We'll see. He's bucked timelines before and come back. That Liz Frank injury, I don't think a lot of people expected him to be ready for camp, but he was.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. He is a freak of nature. This would just be another example of that. But we'll get into that as we go on. We're going to talk on Monday about rookie minicamp, talk about what we saw from Tyler Shuck. We have a lot of quotes, a lot of interviews that we still need to go through. We'll dive into that later on in the week. We'll obviously have the schedule release, so a lot to get to. But this has been Inside Black and Gold. Steve, any parting thoughts?
Just going to watch that final play of Derek Carr jumping up into the air. And that's my reminder of his final time with the Saints.
What a way to end your career.
Yeah.
Like it seemed stupid at the time. And now in retrospect, it's like, man, that was a career ender. Assuming he doesn't come back. I think he will come back. But like,
we were both going, what are you doing?
Like, hope it was worth it. He did get some air. But anyway, Who Dat? Go Saints. Thanks everyone for listening. Everyone for hanging out 1 year. I always appreciate it. This will be in the podcast feed for anyone who wants to kind of catch the replay. And again, we'll be back at it next week, going through all of what we saw at rookie minicamp today. Thanks everyone. Who Dat? Go Saints. Be easy,
Happy
y'all.
Mother's Day to all you Who Dat moms out there.
You got it. Peace.